Alright guys, this is chapter 14 of Black Star. The calling card has been sent, and the Phantom Thieves are finally on their way to rescue Ren from Seki Shimizu's palace. Hopefully he's still alive. He'll probably have just been tortured by Iago or Seki's shadow, wherever it is. But now we're back in the Black Sea. Or the Dead Sea, or the Black Sun, or Black Star. Let's start, folks. The Black Star, the featureless gouge in the cognitive world, hung over them as they trundled through the void. It was better inside the van, but not by much. In here, their voices didn't sound so oddly muffled. The air pumped through Morgana's ventilators tasted more natural, and the roof mostly blocked their view of that ever-present hole. But there was still no sensation of the road underneath. Nothing outside on which the eye could focus. No landmarks, save for the hole, which never seemed to shift no matter how long they drove. If not for Futaba's scans, they might have been on an amusement park ride. A childish parody of movement, going and going, but never arriving anywhere. She picked up a signal after a brief, cautious scan of the palace. Of what, she couldn't be certain. But it gave them an orientation and a place to go. Her console stayed the back of the van with its sickly green light. "Anything new, Oracle?" Makoto asked. Or Queen. "We're getting closer, but hard to say how much. Still can't really pick up what's generating the signal either. So far all I know is that it's something. It's easy to find something when everything else is nothing." "This at least explains how Shimizu's distortion could envelop the entire planet," Mona said. "Shido's palace was remarkable because it was an impression of a living society in miniature. Fitting, given his megalomania." Now that I've triggered gamer PTSD in those who've played Undertale Genocide Route, let's continue. That ship was chock full of cognitive representations of people, all of them flawlessly duplicated. "Including myself," Akechi said dully. Since they'd gotten in the van, he hadn't looked away from his reflection in the side view mirror. "If you like. But Shimizu's palace goes in the opposite direction. Instead of taking a localized area and filling it with detail, his distorted perception just wipes everything totally clean. He's literally a ruler of nothing. What I want to know is how such a distortion could have developed in the first place," said Queen. She gripped the wheel tightly. The lack of feedback or vibration beneath her feet was disturbing her. "Crow, did you really find no childhood traumas or anything that could have led to this?" "His dog died several years ago, and he appeared to be less than enthused about going to Kosei. All very banal." He paused. "Maybe he doesn't need a reason. Maybe the hole was always there." "Pretty sure people don't work that way, dude," Skull said. "So you believe people are fundamentally good?" Not an uncommon thought, but a bit naive. From experience, I could say that... "Just shut up, Crow." Crow's words ran dry. Skull didn't even sound angry, just exasperated. "Even I ain't gonna buy that you had a hard-on for killing people the day you were born. You might have made the dumbass choice to hang around Shido, but do you seriously think he didn't do anything to screw you up worse than before? Both him and that shiny son of a bitch yelled a bay off. Society messes with people, man. That's why we work so hard to fix it. One clawed hand gestured out the windshield. In that case, realize that all of this incubated within the very society you fought for. In the same city, even. So what would you say was actually fixed? Skull fumed but said nothing, and Crow's hand fell. Regardless, this probably isn't the best time for a debate. We need to focus on our goal. Agreed. Stop making noise with your idiot faces. Oracle bent over her console. Signal's finally closing in. Still weirdly fuzzy, but it's not far now. In this endless emptiness, any landmark should have been visible from miles away. And yet, the source of Futaba's signal did not make itself known. It was as though concepts like distance no longer existed here. Instead, as they approached...
At which we know electricity
Oh, fuck!
The Xiaomi...
Fucking adverts on YouTube. I'm really sorry about that, guys. Instead, as they approached, a silhouette faded in from the white, like strips of canvas peeling away to reveal the crossbeams obscured underneath. They all crowded around the windshield to get a closer look. They struggled to discern its shape. A vast heap of broken geometry that sagged like a toadstool, the color of an antique photograph. In those cracked angles, they eventually made out the remnants of awnings, windows, columns stained and warped as plant stems. And in the very front of the building, something far more distinctive. A small booth jutting out from between the doors, almost swallowed whole amidst a mass of rotting masonry and woodwork. The van stopped. Morgana resumed his old shape. They approached the building as though it would bite. There was no sun here to cast shadow, but they still felt its silhouette pressing down on them all. Is this a theater? Panther asked. It was nothing that should have ever been. A crazed mishmash of architecture from every region and age. Stage and film, Renaissance and no. Ornamented like a Rococo cathedral and decayed nearly beyond recognition. As they watched, a nearby parapet shuddered and fell apart like a sloughed-off growth. The bricks tumbled across the jagged rooftop and flew out into the void. And once they were detached from the larger organism of the theater, they crumbled like ash. A moment later, there was nothing left of them. It's seen better days, huh? Skull observed. That's probably truer than you know, Mona said. Is anyone else thinking what I'm thinking? The incongruity, Crow said. His armor stood out like a streak of graphite in the void. A place like this has no business in this type of distortion. Unless... Correct. This may very well be Shimizu's original palace. Just look at this damage. It's like the void is consuming it. He shook his head, those saucer-sized eyes full of worry. It just keeps getting worse. Even his distortions have been distorted. How is it even possible? If you're so distorted to have a palace, How distorted will you have to be after that to have your palace literally decay without its treasure being taken? Panther raised her finger. Hold on. Didn't the Menonite freak out when Oracle suggested a stage for his last keyword? It didn't react much better when I gave it the correct answer, said Crow. This explains it then. A conflict within search terms. Two distortions, one slowly overtaking the other. It's all being swallowed up, and this void is already dominant. Oracle, said Fox. I assume this structure is the source of your signal. That's it, all right. But it's still not coming through all that clearly. Like it's being insulated somehow. Makoto smacked her knuckles into her palm. In we go, then. Crow withdrew the gleaming chrome sword hilt from his waist. He stared at it pensively. His thumb flicked a small switch on its side. A sizzling blue-white ray of solidified light shot out, crackling like a dynamo. It was almost invisible against the black-white backdrop around them. He gave it a few experimental waves, then disabled the blade and resheathed it. After you, he said. The door's hinges, gagged with rust and grime, sounded like bitter laughter. They expected an antechamber or a lobby. Akechi had a brief flash of the desolate and waterlogged reception area of the Yongenjaya Theater. They found neither. Beyond the door was splintered wooden corridor, vast and bare. No carpeting, no decoration. Nothing to mark it as belonging to a theater or any sort of place at all.
Hello, my friend. Casey, Doris, you must have...
Shut up, just eat. There were no torches or sconces, but the hall bore a dingy grey light that seemed to emanate from the very air. They took several cautious steps forward. There was a scraping in the walls, an insidious patter like the scamper of rodentine feet. Phantom Thieves. That autumn leaf voice rushing down the hall. They shivered as the sound passed through them, and had left behind an almost imperceptible creaking from where they'd come from. Queen looked over her shoulder. The doors are gone. She didn't sound surprised. Her tone was slurred, dreamlike. So the trap is shut, Crow said. Oracle had brought up her console, attempted to construct a map. What she produced looked like a magic eye picture that had partly exploded. Her face wasn't smiling and taut. This place is... let's just say it's bigger on the inside. Like Doctor Who in the TARDIS. And the outside was pretty big to start with. Her hands made a few quick passes over the grid, and part of the console was bathed in an infected red light. Shadow activity is through the roof as well. Encounter rate way, way up. That's probably what I detected when we first entered the big empty out there. What about Akira or the treasure? Queen pressed her hand against a wall and pulled it back at once. The wood felt ordinary, but there was a sick vibration passing through her skin that made her want to retch. I'm not getting anything, but given the size of this place, we could walk for half a day and not get enough proximity. Not to mention that the entrance is, missing. We just got shuffled to the heart of the maze. I don't even see a blip of any safe rooms either. His cognition is rock solid all the way through. The way the planks around them creaked was almost smug. "He is unlike our prior targets," said Fox. His voice was steady, but his foxtail twitched and shivered. He knew we would arrive even before the calling card was sent. And because his body is incapacitated, it may be assumed that he is able to fully focus his mind on the reinforcement of this palace. Crow's earlier theory seems to be correct. In this space, he holds every possible advantage. "Nothing to do but bash our way through," Skull growled. "We'll go nuts if we just stand around." Kroll stepped to the front of the group, lightly touching his ray gun. "I don't entirely approve of Skull's approach, but it's the only way we can make progress for now. Not a fortress, but a labyrinth. How interesting." He took another step forward. "I've seen similar, but the way he manipulates his environment is..." The floor opened up beneath him. There was a flat crack like a snapping branch, and then Akechi was gone from the waist down. He made no sound, and his back was turned, so his face was hidden, and all they could see were his claws digging grooves into the woodwork as they fought for purchase. And Haru cried his name, his given name, the codes forgotten and the formality lost, and she lunged for the pit that had opened up beneath him. And the pit at once opened wider so that Akechi was left holding empty air. He fell and twisted, and in the moment before the jagged planks snapped back shut like a pair of jaws, she saw his expression, and it was one of puzzlement, as though he'd been posed a difficult question and was just certain that if he had had a moment, just another moment, he would come to the answer soon. The sound of his disappearance faded. Haru was left on her knees. Noir was left on her knees, her hand still reaching out. The Phantom Thieves were left silent and pale. They saw no shadows and no exit. It was only them, and these barren, forbidding walls, which seemed to have drawn a little closer. Holy shit!